Hey guys, how's it going? It's January 25th, 2018, 8:58 p.m. Eastern. So I only got about a couple hours tonight. Um, at this point, I'm not going to be on this nothing screen here for the next 2 hours. I got the subsistence stuff out of my way. Had a good talk with my son, and we were actually talking about programming and different things, so he may be more interested in programming than I thought. But we'll see how that goes. We certainly got to both try out the multiplayer subsistence tonight. I was going to do a little bit tonight, and then I realized that I'm probably... and actually I do. I had that out of my system now. It's about 9 p.m. In reality, I could get right into it, but the problem with that is, and I know the way I code, that if I really get moving and I start getting momentum on my side, I don't want to stop, and I'll be up all night. And that's what I call binge coding, and I have not done that in ages. Hell, I didn't even do it for RTS beta. I don't think I did. At least I don't remember doing it. RTS beta, there had been times where I got into something, but the way RTS beta worked was it was more program something, see how it works, test it out in Run8, tweak it a little bit, go back. It was a back and forth thing all the time. The beautiful thing about this is I don't care what Run8's doing, because this isn't for Run8. Now that being said, that could all change possibly too, because this is going to be the code that I was going to write for what I was going to commonly refer to as the RTS dispatcher. And I'm just going to go into TD3 for a minute and try to explain what exactly is going on here. So this was one of my save files that I pulled up, and I believe I don't know if I was using this for getting the data, probably the data for the what do you call it? I have so many freaking projects that failed, I can't remember the names of them all. Well, it wasn't the Selkirk project. What did I call that? I didn't call it the Waycross project, did I? I don't know what the hell I called it. I can't remember the last one before Sanford sub. I called it something. What the hell did I call it for? It wasn't Waycross, was it? I don't know what the hell I called it. The Florida project? I don't know. Whatever. I for some reason I'm totally lost on what I called that damn thing. I guess it was just it was going to be the RTS the new RTS Southwest server. So I didn't name it a project. I was saying because there was a Bakersfield project, then I slipped into the Selkirk project. Then I did this, and then I went to Sanford sub to try to find something that was a little bit more smaller. The biggest thing that was getting me was, other than, you know, the addictive nature of Run8 and being into it and getting all excited when you're into it and being caught up and trying to dispatch trains while you're running. That kind of reminded me of what actually a lot of people wanted out of Run8. And I'm mentioning Run8 a few times, and I want to be clear before I start dragging Run8 through the mud here, or trying to get into a situation where it sounds like I'm ungrateful for Run8, or that I got bad feelings for Run8 or anything like that. It's actually the exact opposite. Run8 served my purposes for 6 years. I consider it the best train simulator out there. That being said, I've used similar titles for places like Freight Yard Manager, which I consider the best railroad simulator out there. Now, the problem with Freight Yard Manager for me was they never wanted to include the best train simulator into their product. Now, this was before Run8, and this was a time where I was looking for something in go-between to bring all worlds into the same type of VATSIM type environment for Flight Simulator, for example. Ideally, that was the goal that I always wanted to have for trains. Oddly enough, I could never get dispatchers to come into Run8. I had plenty of contacts, and I had plenty of previous experience or previous contacts with the TD3 community. I had created some territories or whatever, although most of it was more of an RTS based multiplayer type thing. I still had some contacts with TD3, and I tried getting people hooked on to the idea that they could actually dispatch real trains, and none of them really bought into it, because probably the dispatching systems were not what they were used to in TD3. So originally, when I was going to write the AI dispatcher, I was going to use a mode in TD3 that communicated with it. And that would have been great and all, but unfortunately TD3 is hardly available to anybody. It's been discontinued. You cannot even buy it now. I don't know if it's, I guess technically it almost falls into abandonware, but I don't know about that, because the company still exists. They just don't support it anymore. And I mean, you can get passwords and whatever. It's a great, it's here, you know. But before I get into that, I want to get into a few things. I want to go into some of the advantages and disadvantages between TD3 and Run8. And you might think, well, what are you're comparing apples to oranges? No, I'm not actually. I'm not comparing apples to oranges here. I'm actually going to compare how things are done in Run8 and how things are done in TD3 from the operations level. So what happens is a dispatcher who may have experience in TD3 or real-life dispatching comes into Run8. They have three routes to choose from. You have California, you have Florida, and you have Selkirk. If you're in California right now, you have access to both the F3 dispatch screen and you have access to the external dispatcher. However, the external dispatcher was not updated. The last update, I forget when that came out, but it came out for version 2, but then other than that, it really hasn't been updated and never included the most recent route, which really didn't affect me anyways because I never purchased it. So it's the external dispatcher essentially has become a form of, even though it's freeware, it's essentially become abandoned, unless they have plans to bring out a new version of the external dispatcher. I don't see any, you know, and there's never really been a push from what I understand. Now, mind you, I'm on limited forums, and even of the limited forums that I even care to look at anymore, which really I don't, because I haven't. There's one, for example, Run8 Depot, I haven't looked at all year. Most of the conversations in December were boring the hell out of me. There was nothing going on, and apparently all the good conversations happen on Depot Plus and Facebook. Well, as of the end of the month, I'm off of Facebook. I decided to make that personal decision. I wasn't going to bother with Facebook any longer. I just posted tonight. I left my email address to my friends. I'm gone. As far as the end of the month, I am done with Facebook. I'm still with YouTube. I have no issues with YouTube other than I don't like this whole policy, and I stopped monetizing my channel. I use YouTube all the time. I intend to keep using YouTube, and I will use it for free to communicate to potential audiences and potential people who are interested in following what I do. And for this is my way of going to share with people. If people want to see what I'm doing, great. And this allows me to solidify and explain in much further detail what I'm trying to accomplish here. And you can tell in the tone of my voice, the confidence. And words are nothing. Action speaks louder than words. Right now, I don't have the action to back up my words. I've done it in the past, though. Keep in mind, I have done it in the past, or else RTS beta never would have happened. So, just because I'm working now doesn't mean I don't have the time and I can adjust my priorities accordingly. And if I get motivated enough and if I actually can do something, then look out, is all I got to say. Because when I get a huge goal in my mind, some of the biggest goals in my life was to, when I was younger, was just to get across Canada on the train. I did that in my teens. I've done that several times since, to the point where now, the last time I went, I was kind of bored with my son. And I was actually kind of bored going out there. It was kind of a surreal feeling. I wasn't bored, but I mean I loved going out just to get out to the West Coast. But the trip, even though it had been 5 years, was not. I'd be up in the dome car watching signals, and it was just like I was watching a Run8 screen. It was kind of weird. Whereas before that, watching the signals and watching how the trains reacted to the signals and everything was a lot more fulfilling than it is now. That being said, I still have a lot of passion for railroads, and both myself and my son still have a lot of passion for railroads, hence why I am still going to pursue a railroad genre simulation, and I do have big plans. But I want to get into this whole Run8 thing just a little bit and put that to rest as far as what I'm about to basically break down. As I said before, my feelings towards Run8, I still have, like I said, my rail driver is in front of me. I could go on a server anytime I want to. I could host anytime I want to. If an update comes out for Run8, I may very well purchase it. If it fits something that is something that it sells me on. Maybe it's a new route, and it's just like, ooh, this could be something where I can escape from. That's not going to change the direction I'm headed. What is changed is this whole past 5 years, or really more like 4.5, I would say, of constantly having a schedule and trying to keep to a schedule of providing a server for the public. That's done. As far as I'm concerned, there's enough servers out there. I don't need to fill that void anymore. There's plenty of servers to choose from. What I have to offer, if I can get excited because a fourth person might be interested in going on, Southwest, and I got excited that night, and I went on, and that's what got me into to Run8 the other night, was because a new person, a fourth person, said they were interested. And I'm just like, okay, well, maybe I got 4, maybe I can get going, and I'm just like, no, I'm still not feeling it. Why am I not feeling it? And there's too many bandages that I've had to put in play. And like I said, this isn't nothing personal against Run8. Run8 is what it is. But everybody has their own needs and desires, and RTS has been detached for all of 2017 from Run8 simply because really it was no longer a power in regards to being able to shape the way trains respond. There was a reliance totally onto Run8 and its really cool features, except a lot of the cool features that we thought we were going to get really didn't develop, and some of the scheduling stuff really hasn't developed. Now, that being said, I want to compare how TD3 works into how Run8 may or may not work in the future, or where it works now. First of all, the AI system. The AI system in Run8 is superior to TD3. And you might think, what? What are you talking about? How can it be superior to TD3? TD3 is the best dispatcher program out there. How can the AI work better? If I was to have basically, if I was to get more of a simulation of the way trains handle, how they do it, and no, they don't have 100% perfect physics. They don't need to. The difference between how a dispatch works in Run8 versus how a dispatch works from my experience as a TD3 dispatcher, and I have several hundreds of hours dispatching TD3. I've done just as much of this as I've done Run8 in the past. And I can tell you right now, here's where it all comes in play. When you go into the data and you go into train type descriptions, you will see these various things here. You have a startup time value. You have a freight, intermodal, passenger, and track car, which are the track types. Now, I believe those are user defined, if I'm not mistaken. If I was to go into a block, let's say if we want to go into the block at just outside of Folkestone here, and I right-click on this in the speeds, you can see that the train types. Now, you can have multiple train types, but what you're seeing there is what the speed of the train is going to be cleared ahead, no blocks, which means it's coming up to a red signal, which is kind of odd because it should be going, technically it should be going 30 miles an hour if there's no cleared ahead blocks. It should be going 45 per rules, kind of like the track car, but the track car is limited to 25 throughout. All of them have startup. None of them require helper. So see, now this is where you have the helper. This is how TD3 defines helper services, and where it requires a helper, the train will just stop until it gets a helper. But yeah, this is how it does it, and this is how it will define how many blocks ahead it's been cleared. I'm not too sure if it does what Run8 does. Now, Run8 does something a little bit wonky, and it treats everything as if it's cab signal territory, because the train, I believe, will start reacting to the signals before it gets to the signal. I think. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Don't quote me on that one, but that's not important, at least not at the moment. The point of the matter is this. Because you're only limited to 4 different speeds, you're not really dealing with horsepower per ton. Now, if I load up another route, I'll go into some, I only got 2 saves in here. If I go up to BNSF Needles, and you see these trains that are following each other, in the real life, not the real life, but if you were to simulate a Run8 territory for Needles, what would end up happening in Run8 is the trains would actually react accordingly to the HPT. So you'll end up having trains that start bunching up on each other. In the case for Selkirk, now one of my little pet peeves for Selkirk was that the HPT values were too generous. So trains never bunched up together. They basically acted, what do you call it? Like a conveyor belt is what I like to call it. Where even when the passengers, there was plenty of passengers, Empire Service passenger trains that were on the Selkirk line, you really couldn't have a passenger train catch up to even some of the manifest freights, because they were always able to go track speed, because the lowest values, you know how you set your values from low to high, the lowest values for HPT were still way more powerful than the grades. They've done it good with California, and I think they've done it good with Florida as well. The HPT low values are good. So I'm going to take us back to the other one, just because I want to keep this one open for the Atlantic coast, because this is more in line with what I want to talk about shortly. I don't want to deal exclusively with double track, and I'll get to that very shortly as I go on here, try to explain where I'm headed with all this. So like I said before, the HPTs and how Run8 does it, they do AI perfectly in that aspect, because they're able to actually get a proportional speed out of the train, which changes the way the dispatcher has to be calculating or determining or trying to estimate where the trains are going to be for meets, such as Hague's already got a meet here, but I'm just trying to see if there's one up here. I don't see one. I do see double track sections that are laid out. Most of these are all set up. This guy here's stopped waiting for a signal. So, for example, you got a three-way meet at Hague, and you got a two-way meet going on at Folkestone. Now, three-way meets and everything like that's going to be challenging for my logic. Challenging, but not impossible. I don't think any of it's impossible, because if a human can do it, a computer can as well. I want to be very clear on that. AI in the real world right now is becoming super, super good and human-like. Now, what humans are good at are pattern recognition. They're very good. They're very good at adaptiveness. They're very good at hunches, I guess, or imagination, feeding off of emotions, gut feelings, stuff like that. You don't get that with computers. Intuition, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. But anyways, you can't really program that. You can only program patterns, matrices that represent an average of probable results, all kinds of crazy things that I am not going to even go that far. Like, railroads are not that difficult in lines of doing it. Now, I've said that AI dispatching, the reason why you haven't seen it done very well is it's not the easiest thing to program. And I'm not a genius by any means, but I have theories that I have never actually programmed my theories and my designs. I believe my designs and my theories and my systems are very sound. My systems are simply the 15-30 approach. Every 15 minutes, and you notice I stopped at 3 o'clock on a Sunday. Every 15 minutes I go 30 minutes ahead. And then I overlap every 15 minutes, and then I make adjustments according to changes. Hotbox detectors, which TD3 does simulate, Run8 does not. Hotbox detectors, it also simulates engine failures, and it simulates engine failures, it simulates switch failures, it simulates signal failures. So there's all little wildcards that can come into play that this will simulate. Ideally, I think that's something that should be simulated. It doesn't do well, it does do derailments if you drop a signal in front of it, but that's, you know, in reality, derailments could happen for a variety of reasons in extreme situations, but they do happen, obvious reasons. So how do we get from that to, you know, getting on to, well, why am I comparing Run8 and TD3? The reason why I'm comparing the two and why I'm not totally 100% divorced or from considering Run8 is because I plan on proving a hypothesis, and I plan on proving basically a technique or a I can't think of the word. Word doesn't come to mind, so I don't have the words, so I'll have to just prove it by the actions that I will eventually demonstrate. It won't be tonight, obviously, because I haven't touched one piece of code yet. I did post on the forums tonight, though, so you can tell I am serious. These are the comparisons I was looking for the engine, and I will not be using Liberty Basic right away. That is the latest version. I am using just Basic, but the upgrades to Liberty Basic will give you more of these things, including leveraged third-party DLL libraries, which could come into handy at a later date, and I will explain what that means. The DLL libraries, I may have access to the DLL libraries that Run8 uses. So there is a possibility, if I can figure out what the hell I'm doing and if I can finally get some help from somebody, which I've asked for, but I mean, the way I've burned bridges lately, who knows? And all I'm going to say is this, and I don't mean to burn more bridges or sound pissed off or whatever. The reason, as I said, there is a lot of dispatchers that Run8 could get. There was a time where we used to have a lot of people in Run8 who loved dispatching. And suddenly, I don't know, for lack of a better term, I mean, there's a few places like Southwest that manages to have a few dispatchers who like to dispatch. But that void for dispatchers really never was so much. Everybody wanted to dispatch back in 2016. I remember clearly running on California server. Everybody wanted to dispatch. We didn't have enough trains, but everybody wanted to dispatch. Okay, by the time 2017 came around, nobody really wanted to dispatch suddenly. Yeah, it was kind of weird. Like version 2 came around, like nobody wanted to dispatch. Everybody wanted to run. I was like, okay, well, I guess everybody wanted to run more because they got to see their choo-choos go running by each other. I don't know. I don't know what the reason was, but this third-party DLL is interesting because there is, from what I understand, a DLL that has something to do with Run8 in regards to the external dispatcher. Now, there was once upon a time I did try to get help when I was on better terms, tried to get help with John Greenstone. I really didn't get much help. Or maybe he was too busy, maybe he didn't think I was experienced enough to do it. I don't know. But, you know, he's busy doing his thing. He can't you know, answer everybody's questions. He's got a business to run and all that other stuff. So, no. You know, no big deal. I understand that. Skis also tried to reach out back when he had some time because he knew that I was interested in writing an external dispatcher. And this prompted a lot of, if you recall, I did say I was a little bit jealous and envious of the fact that it looked like TSCAD was finally coming. Now, I don't know what's going on now. I don't know if they've ran into an issue or what the case is, but it kind of went dead for a while, to the point where I really don't care, because I'm not interested in Run8 anymore. The developer for TSCAD also tried to help me out. Actually, he was the one that gave me the most assistance back in the day when it was still on version 1 of Run8. He actually tried to walk me through some of the going through whatever the hell that stupid RabbitMQ thing or whatever, which I don't think you need anymore, but at the time it was the way you had to deal with it. So the DLLs are something that I'm not too familiar with. This is something that is more, DLL is something more, even API calls, Windows API. You know, breakpoints I'm very familiar with, but Windows API, third-party DLLs, switches to control the IDE. These are three things right there that represent more modern types of programming with Windows and object-oriented kind of things. I did a little bit of Visual Basic, so I do have a little bit of experience with some object-oriented programming, but other than that, I did very little in Visual Basic, and for the most part handled basic code as opposed to Visual Basic. If you want to see an example of what I wrote in Visual Basic, there is a program called Bridgemaster that's out there. It was probably, other than RTS, the last program I wrote that was to be used for Run8, and it was to represent the swing bridges on the Sanford sub. The program will be obsolete once TSCAD does eventually get released again, although it is, well, no, it was compatible with version 1, so it was available for version 1 of Florida. But right now, my point before was, if you're a TD3 dispatcher and you're trying to get into the Run8 universe, you have to fork out Run8. You have to be, I think you have, yeah, you'd have to fork out whatever routes you want to dispatch in order to be able to dispatch. So that's a lot of money for somebody who's not into 3D, possibly not into 3D simulators as much, to be part of a network to dispatch real live people, because the truth of the matter is a lot of dispatchers are doing something different, and that is they are dispatching model railroads remotely. That's a big thing that's going on, and it's happening more and more as more computer circuits and stuff like that gets readily available. Don't quote me on this. I think Michael Phillips is dispatching a model railroad. Maybe I'm wrong on it. I know there's somebody I know who actually dispatches a model railroad remotely. When I heard about that, I was like, damn, I wish I could do that. Now, I've dispatched, but unfortunately they never got signals in the CTC. It's kind of in development right now for the Model Railroad Club that I used to belong to, and unfortunately most of the clubs around my area, you know, never were really into signals as much as I was. But anyways. So graphic user interfaces, all these things are, you know, interactive tutorials. That's fine and day. Hardware port I/O from your programs, that's probably going to help me. I'm going to be a little more familiar with that. Sprite commands, I'm familiar with those. I haven't used them in over 20 years, but this will make my programs, especially the 2D version of what I'm going with, even be better. Now, I can use sprites as part of the dispatching, although that's not really necessary. This is going to come into play more with my 2D programs, and I'll go into that a little briefly. I don't want to go past 10 o'clock tonight. It's 9:32 right now, and you know, my throat gets dry, and by the time, you know, the night goes through, it's just like, okay, I'm tired. So But anyways, I posted that tonight just so you guys know that yes, I'm researching. Yes, I'm doing what it's basically, I have just basic already for obvious reasons because I programmed RTS. So I'm going to start RTS from scratch. I don't think I'm going to be changing the name unless I can think of something else to call it. I may call this one RTS Dispatcher, this module, but eventually RTS Dispatcher will become part of a bigger picture. But let me just keep with the RTS Dispatcher for now, because what I'm going to be doing is I cannot say, first of all, where Run8 is going in the next year. They're talking about, first of all, I wanted to let me go with the advantages and disadvantages of what has and what doesn't. Back, and I've mentioned this before, back before version 2 came out, Run8 was supposed to have an interface that was going to have trains that was very similar to TD3, and I was ecstatic. I thought, yes, I can have all the scheduled trains and I can have real life dispatching and everything's going to be cool. And unfortunately, that got scrapped because of something Mobeta that was supposed to come along eventually, which apparently is going to come along in 2018, maybe by version 3, I'm not sure. There's other routes, etc. that's coming. You know, things happen. So, whatever. It's a sore spot for me because it's really started to show itself in the smaller routes, and it's really started to show it when you don't have the train masters involved and the people to spawn trains. It grew old very quickly. Back when AI first started, just to see a train see a lot of trains was spectacular. When you were in California, for example, you would have 200 different symbols, so you didn't notice the repeating as much. But when you're in Sanford Sub, you notice the repeating a lot more because there's such a smaller pool that can be brought into play. And then for some reason, stuff like passenger trains, which I do have in there, never seem to spawn because it always seems to spawn the ones that are more popular or more probable first. And that's just the way I have them set up in there, but it's not an ideal scheduling system, and hopefully they'll fix that. TD3 has a pretty good scheduling system. It will give you, if I was to start this up, it will give you a list of trains that is going to come on. So I can see as a dispatcher, even if 305, if I look at this 304 I should say, normally comes into territory at 2:15. He's actually late. You have crew expiry, you have, you know, like passenger things, so it will adjust the various, and there you see the various train types as I was showing you before. So everything will go along and you know, things will be fine and dandy. I'll stop that again, let that hold out again. I don't want to save this because I wanted to demonstrate a few things that you're going to probably see, and hopefully, I mean, these talking little sessions and what I'm planning, you're going to see fewer and fewer of this because eventually it's going to be action, not talk. Talk isn't going to do nothing. What you'll eventually start seeing more and more, with the exception of my little escapes into other stuff now and then, is I want to get into the actual coding, which means I have to get myself into the right mood, the right frame of mind. Talking is not going to program things. Programming it means I have to get myself into a groove. I have to get myself to slowly chip away and make the small steps. Problem solving, I am a very good problem solver. I always have been. It's always been my key. I'm good at I've and if you need examples of how I've problem solved, just take a look at all the little band-aid solutions that I've put into the RTS systems, whether it be a workaround to get trains to tag a certain way, or to get entire trains to change their commodities and load while still allowing other people to work, etc. So there's a lot of different ideas that I've put into Sanford Sub. That unfortunately didn't work. I have other little band-aid solutions that I've put in, for example, to have the yard list show you what's in the hump, if you guys remember that. So there's a lot of little band-aid solutions you probably do not see anywhere else. And that part of me, you know, really feels like I've let the community down, because that it eats at me a little bit, because those are the things that nobody else brings to the table. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn or sound arrogant or anything like that. Nobody brought those solutions. I mean, I'm not saying that people can't bring solutions. There's people out there who are putting out great servers, going with the flow, giving what everybody else wants, being popular, giving giving everybody their team speak, giving everybody else. I mean, hey, I like to do things the easy way, but at the same time, I always like going against. I always like not going against the popular movement, but when I feel against something, not being afraid to swim upstream. Just because everybody likes cell phones and likes looking at their cell phones and tip 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 all the time, doesn't mean everybody likes it. It might be the most popular thing for most people to do because they're attached to their cell phones and they like their Facebook and they like whatever else. I still like YouTube. I wish I didn't, but I do. I'm reliant on YouTube. I like YouTube. It's the source because, hey, I don't have cable. A lot of people have cable. Well, you don't have cable? You don't watch Game of Thrones? You don't watch this? No, I don't watch any of that crap. I got better things to do. So the time that I could be doing that, hell, the time I could be talking to you guys, to be honest. But I'm just a nice guy, and I want people to come along with this ride for me. And I know I've taken you guys through some roller coaster rides. And I want to be honest with you. I don't know what's going to happen with my association with Run8. I don't know if I will ever host again. I don't know if I will ever, do whatever. Here's what's going to happen. What you're going to see over the course of, I don't know, I'm not going to put any time stamps or whatever. I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to let it hang out, and I'm going to see what happens. But I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And I'm going to do what I promised I could do about a year ago, and that is I am going to create an AI dispatcher. It may not be for one of the routes of Run8. It might be some other line. It might be, I mean, I don't know. I got all kinds of different lines I can choose from. It could be, well, there's Selkirk. It could be, what do we got here? Lackawanna Grand. No, that doesn't look good. I got a bunch of them. Blah, 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 blah. Open track territory faults. Which ones do we have? We got a few of them in here. Oh yeah, BC Rail. There we go. Maybe it'll be BC Rail. I don't know. Who knows? Oh, I was doing something here. I was wanting to show you what was going to happen, but anyways, I'll take you back to that in a second. But so I don't know what particular one it's going to be. But I am going to find a way and push the envelope as much as I possibly can, even if it is a half-ass dispatcher or a dispatcher that plays it really safe or it's AI assisted. I can do a lot better and make it a lot easier for a single player to actually enjoy the sim than to have to be going back to the F3 or external dispatcher or whatever to line up signals for themselves. I mean, that works great when you have dispatchers. We have had a glut of dispatchers, as far as I'm concerned, for a very long time. At least that's the trend I've seen in most servers that I associate with. And it's why 24/7 servers are not at the full potential that they should be. Because you got a 24. Think about it this way: the whole thing with 24/7 servers and why I brought 24/7 servers into reality. Remember, I'm the one that did it. I know I have to remind people of that. People rewrite history all the time, but that's one I can take claim for. I can take claim for being the first Run8 server. I can also take claim for being the first 24/7 server, because I was. Wasn't the first Anarchy, but we know that. We know the word for that. You know, or we know the story. Well, most of you know the story. And if you don't, oh well. That's just the bottom line with that. So my whole thing with 24/7 back then was so that give everybody from whatever time zone they were in the opportunity, and I ended up getting a lot of people from Europe and New Zealand and all kinds of places to come on to RTS because of that concept at first, because I already had those members from those locations that wanted to participate and couldn't be involved. And when I saw Anarchy, I thought, yeah, well, let's do a 24/7. Here's the problem, and I ticked a lot of those same people off when I told them that California, back when Mike was running the California server, which he still is, the Southwest server, the former RTS California server that he had taken over for me, when I had to tell people that California was no longer going to allow you to run trains unless a dispatcher was there, and that really ticked off a lot of people. They didn't want to discuss it, they didn't want to talk about it, they were just disgusted, and they never really came back to RTS. And that was still, back when Mike was running RTS, and they didn't like that too much, and yeah. And I mean, I was willing to discuss it and come up with ideas and solutions, but that was the only solution that we can come up with, because we had to figure out a way of how do we get the trains to run, but yet allow trains to be able to be running at various times of days, but still have the maximum traffic. And now what you have in the Southwest server is you have a bit of a compromise, because traffic levels, I don't know if they're at around 90 or 80%, but they're a little bit lower so that less dispatchers can dispatch more of a territory. The problem with that is they still have to dispatch more of a territory, which means they have to work a lot harder, despite the fact that their number of trains isn't down. When I dispatch, for example, a cycle, I go from top to bottom every 15 minutes. I start from here every 15 minutes. I go all the way down here. More trains means I have to do more calculations in my head. But then 15 minutes later, I start from this end. Just to make sure I overlap. Everything's an overlap. You do 30 minutes of train in front of you for every 15 minutes. You end up overlapping. And that's how it works. So, I mean, in a nutshell, that's how it all works. How you get that into an AI system? Well, you got to apply the same rules and logic that you would use as a dispatcher to determine what confirms an overtake, what confirms priority, what confirms capacity into a siding. For example, is this train going to fit in this siding? What about if you can't, and then this one's coming? Have you been able to ascertain that this train will fit in this main if, for instance, both trains can't? Like, for example, a classic example would be the siding at Wollong, for example, is very short. A lot of times you get trains that both trains are too long. You have to be able to think ahead of those situations and say, okay, if if just to make sure, does this siding for sure fit this siding, blah blah blah, and everything else works good, and every train that's behind it's going to fit there. There's a lot of logic that goes into it, and I'm not too sure how the logic works for the AI driven Cincinnati sub or whatever the hell it's called that Ski was mentioning to me. But I'm pretty certain, I don't know for certain, but I have a funny idea that this is a prototypical system that runs. I have a funny feeling it's a double track mainline. A double track mainline is a lot simpler because you can then have it run as AI, and there might be a few sections that are single track in between, or there might be use of crossovers and overtakes and triple track sidings and whatever, kind of like needles. But you have to have it be able to ascertain the parameters of what's going on. So my mission is to make this all a reality sooner than later, hopefully. And that's why I didn't want to learn another language. I didn't want to learn, even if it's a simpler program, I don't want to learn something new when I already have something that I know how to use. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's not going to be as pretty as this, I can tell you that right now. It will not be as pretty. The point is, it's not supposed to be pretty. All I want it to do is portray the data into a basically a usable interface. Now, to prove, or to go through the proof to make sure it works, what I would do is I would also have a time multiplier on there that would be able to multiply, speed up the time as fast, because as long as it goes as not fast enough that the computer can handle, but fast enough that it can do all its calculations, the faster you can run it, the more you can test it, because then you can get to go through time faster. So in other words, I'm not going to dispatch, I'm just going to go ahead and put the multiplier on, and you can see these trains will start taking off here in a second. Well, yeah, here they go. So you can see they're flying across the territory. Train arrived at one territory. You see, there's one AI goes through. Now I'm not signaling everything. What you would see in the AI dispatcher, though. Train arrived. See how I had these stacks already set up? So there's your 15 minutes. I already had those stacks set up. If I go here again, I'll show you. See how this is already stacked up? I already determined that this train was going to come out first at Central Junction, and this one was going to come out next based on the things. Watch this again. Watch Central Junction. Don't worry about anything else, just watch Central Junction here. You'll see a train arrive on territory here. There it is. So he's going to come down here. Train arrived at one territory. He's going to pass here. Train arrived. See? I needed the crossover to get him over to here, so I'd already had that. Train stopped, waiting signal. There's the third one. All of that was done before 3 a.m. Okay? That is something an AI dispatcher can do if he knows the rules. So, in other words, I'm going to load that up again. You can see I have a double stack here. The first train comes out of here. The second comes out of here. That's the second stack. The third stack comes out of here. So you can delete the stack command. So there's a stack command here, there's a stack command there. The stack command takes the one that uses it takes priority first. So it's not a fleet, it's a stack. So once again, Central Junction, sorry. This was all done before 3 o'clock.
Train arrived at 1 territory.
One comes out. Now I just happened, and I didn't even realize I had this in here.
Train arrived at 1 territory.
So the one comes out. It's already 3:10. Now,
train arrived.
There's the train behind it, but he had the stack first before the other one. So what would normally happen at 3:15, now if I go through the alerts, I have that train arrived on territory. I had this train stopped waiting for the signal. So here I knew I couldn't really go too far. I have a stack of 3 coming out of Waycross. So now I can go ahead. Oops, sorry. What am I doing here? Am I stacking it the other? Oh no, sorry, I'm stacking it the other way. Don't worry, I haven't been doing this for a while. So I already had the guy coming out, and he's coming out behind it, but I do have a stack of 3 going this way. So he stopped waiting because I guess he was doing an overtake. I'm not exactly sure what happened there. So this is how this 1530 works. So everything here, I'm going through every alert that this thing gave me in the first 15 minutes. And I'm showing you this because this is all it is a matter of rules. And I know I'm coming close to the 10 o'clock mark, and yeah, I want to do some other things besides this for tonight before I go to bed. But now I look at the next trains that are coming up. So I see at 3:15 a Y2 to A1. Well, as you can see, probably did I have it? Yeah, see, Y2 was already lit up. Notice it was already lit up. I didn't touch that. This was touched before 3 o'clock. So now I know, see, I already had that set up. 4:05 is the next one. That doesn't happen in the next half hour, so that is the only one I have to worry. So if I was running at normal speed, I'm going to normal speed this down now. And I forget what I was doing with all of these, but basically everything is already stacked up. I've got this guy who's waiting to get down here, but he's got 2 trains waiting, so I got nowhere to go. I've got the other guy all lit up. There, he just arrived. So I'm back to normal time again. So he just arrived here. He's been given as much track as I can give him. Now you can give him 30 minutes of track, or you can give him more if you know that you can ascertain that that train is the only one that's going to take it. Over at Crawford, he's leaving at 3:40. So let me start off with the top. Let's say we've got him coming here, we got him coming here. I've got a train coming this way. 30 minutes ahead. I'm looking at the distance between. Now, of course, V104, he's at 41 miles an hour. I've also got him, which he's going to 21, which puts him down this way. Notice I only brought him to here because this was undetermined. So in the next 15 minutes, something's going to happen. What you can do in those cases is you can monitor a situation closely, or monitor more than one situation closely if you're not exactly sure how the timing is going to pan out. In this case, I'm pretty certain he's going to be okay based on my observations, so I'm going to go ahead, and I know nothing's coming out of 21 in the next half hour, and as long as I feel he can make it in the next half hour, I give it to him. The other guy here, he's going to H4. I know he's ahead of him. H4 is, everything's done by letters here, and it's in alphabetical order. H4 H4, where is that? Is that he got work to do or something moving forward? H4. Oh, that's sorry, no, that is that's Baldwin. Oh, he's got to go way down to Callahan. I don't know why they show H4 there. It's actually past Four-Acre to Baldwin. So yeah, now he's moving along nicely as I expected. So H4 to Baldwin, I can add a stack signal now. Again, this is stuff that AI can do. All it is logically going through the various components and seeing what's going to happen. He's not coming. I got nothing else coming this way. So to give him more room, and considering nothing else is coming, what I'll do is I will go ahead and keep him running. Now, of course, you have to determine track speeds. Is this track faster? Is it faster to bring him down? It's probably easier to put him on the fast track here for now. And I had to put him down here because of he's coming this way and I wasn't too sure. So I had already lit him up anyways and I didn't want to mess with that anymore. So it's better that I keep him going. This guy here, probably going to keep him onto the main. I'll stack him one more. And then I'm going on to here. Again, he's down to 340, which means he is going to performing local work. So he's heading over to Baldwin by 340. I don't put him past Four-Acre because that brings it into the end of the 30-minute cycle. He's still stopped. I got another train stopped here. Going over to Waycross, got him going. That's out. That's out. He's actually was heading that way. I don't know why I had him looking like he was this way. It looked like he was going the other way, so that was my fault. So he was one of the three that was stacked through. I'm going to go ahead and stack a second one behind him. I don't know why I have three. It's probably supposed to be stacked two, but anyways. I'm going to continue to stack at least one. And then bring him behind here, stack another one. And just like that, I'm able to ascertain what's going on. I could fast forward this again. I used to dispatch this way actually. Used to go through and would be able to do this. Now I'm showing you this exercise because these are rules that I use. And see, I can fast forward. I don't have to look at anything. This is where you, as a dispatcher, can go to the washroom, do whatever you want, and now I'll slow it down at 3:30 again. As you can see, the railroad is running. I never really checked what he was doing. So he's leaving the territory, which is fine. Everything that's going on to here, I didn't really give him any more, but see, now I'll start down here this time. What I didn't do is I didn't pay attention to here. Of course, if this was real time, I would have, but this is one of the things in the challenges that I will have to make sure that any train that's stopped, it's going to be, you're stopped for what and when can you bring, like, basically I should have had a stacked signal in front of him and I didn't. So because of everything that was going on here, I didn't know what was going on, but I did have the stack, so that at least I did okay. Now he's going to A1, but I'm going to continue. I'm going to start with Hague here first, looking at what's going on here. He's going into 75. The first thing I wanted to do before I did any of this, though, is checking to see those trains that are coming on at 4 o'clock, which is none. So 3:30 to 4 o'clock, there are none trains, no other trains. So I don't have to worry about setting entry signals, so because nothing's coming in on the next half hour. I'm looking at down here. I see everything is 2. This one I can delete a stack because I have too many. 2 is fine. 1 for here is okay. Actually, no, I don't need the 1. 1's here is fine, but that's just the 1 signal. That's 2 clears, 1, 1. 2 more clears, 1, 1. I can go ahead and stack another one. Now this is opposed to fleets. You're actually setting the number of times a signal is going to be remaining at the clear position. So with trains coming in, he will reach Waycross at 75 for the Fitzgerald sub. I can go ahead and start stacking him. After that, I wouldn't want to push it. Although, what is he at? He's going to 73, which... What did I say, 73? Sorry, I'm not familiar with that one. Where is that? Oh, that's a Fitzgerald sub. Okay, hang on a second here. Oh, he's going to 75. Oops. Let me delete that stack. Got my numbers screwed up. So now I can add the stack in for here. So the first one goes down into Rice Yard, the other one goes down the Fitzgerald sub. Everything else I'm not worried about. I continue to move on this way. As you can see, I got a train headed for H4, which means he's going down to Crawford. Comes out here. As long as he's going to hit the diamond in a half hour, I believe this is, yeah, this is an AI diamond. So it's the first one to get it, I believe. Is that how it works? I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, it's the first one to get it. I believe it's an automatic diamond. Automatic equals yes. If it wasn't, then I would have to set the signals. And in that case, I would have to make sure. So whoever gets there first gets it. Whoops. I had the switch against me, which is why it gave me an error there. So he's leaving in 10 minutes. If I'm not too sure about Baldwin, I want to see when the next train, he's at 5:12, so this is again checking to see whether or not I can clear it even further than the half hour, and I can, so that's good. Everything else is good. I'll even give him one more. In fact, I'll give him all the way, because I know from my experience that Q213 will make it in plenty of time. That's just saving me extra steps later on. So this is how I dispatch, basically. Now I went up there. This is kind of like divided because of Callahan. Okay. Now he stopped waiting for another signal. I don't know what signal he stopped waiting for. He just hasn't started up because the train in front of him was going. So I'll get him going one more. That's why I had the other stacked. I didn't think I had to. Oh, he's going 75. That's why. Okay, here. So there was a reason why I had that extra signal. But anyways, I'll get him going that far. It's the one behind him that's going to A1. So again, I'm setting up Folkestone for multiple stacks. And then Birch, you know, down this way, it doesn't really matter. I can put it up to Nahanta for now, and that'll be fine. Crawford, I don't have to worry about this. This I gotta worry about. Generally, you want to have it before the half hour is up, but as long as you don't have him running into signals. Now, what do we got here? We got a passenger. See, this is where you have to pay attention to classes more too. Passenger is for one, I think I'm supposed to have him. Did I have him? Okay, that was Savannah. Oh, it's Jessup I have to worry about. No, he's not set for Jessup. That's okay, that's the auto train, that's why. Okay. So he's only going 50, so this is why I stopped him at South Obuchi, because I wanted to make sure everything was good. Okay. So now, you know, it's about 5 minutes after than I wanted to, but again, I can speed this up and you'll see what happens. He may have to stop or wait for a signal at South Oguchi there. See, I'm already at 347, so now I would already be in the middle of setting up my next loop, which means I'd be setting up a stack. Now, of course, I couldn't give him much more anyways, so it wasn't a big deal. These guys are following each other, but then I can look at, there's a lot of different things I could be looking at. Now, in reality, when I'm dispatching, I'm going to use the downtime to analyze. AIs can do that too. AI can set up a series of commands, but it can also reanalyze situations to checksum to make sure that everything is going as it planned and make adjustments accordingly, just like a human can. So a human dispatcher, well, a good dispatcher is going to reanalyze the situation, make sure that his rules are playing out as he expected. There's always the possibility of an overestimate, an underestimate, and then what the AI does is the AI can do the same thing. It can analyze, because AIs, like for example, best analogy I can give you in this, and I'll stop this. The best analogy I can give you in this is how storm tracking and hurricane tracking and weather forecasting. You see models, and the models don't always agree. Various models tell you a storm's going to be a little bit further west, another model says a little bit east, but as time gets closer, the probability becomes much more centered. The models start agreeing the closer. That's why you have a cone, like in tropical storms, you have a cone of where things are going to be long term, but in the short term, you pretty much know where the hurricane is going to be based on all the current atmospheric data. So I know I'm getting into weather and all kinds of this, but the analogy is very simple and it applies to AI. So what does this all mean? I'm going to sum this up in the next 5 minutes. I'm going to demonstrate that my models are sound. I'm going to continue to demonstrate that I can apply these to computer code, that I can create realistic scenarios with realistic, real random train data, just like TD3 does. I'm also going to apply the various HPT, the positive things that Run8 does, such as the HPT calculations. I'm probably not going to do the hotbox detectors and the breakdowns and all that first. I want to keep things simple first. Run8 does not have hotbox detector failures for AI currently, and they do not have breakdowns. So I'm going to apply this on a basis of proving, as basically as a proving ground, that AI dispatching will work for Run8. Now, you might be saying, why are you still talking about Run8? Didn't you just give that up? I'm like, not really. I'm still holding hope. Now here's where the big picture rolls in. You saw this thing when it speeds up to 40. I plan on, if I can get it working without coughing up and crying uncle and saying, human, I need your help, I'm screwed up, like a teenager at a job and doesn't know what the hell he's doing type thing. What I will be able to do is show YouTube videos of the program in action doing its AI thing, possibly with a dispatch board. I'll do it in high resolution, like so that you can see the dispatch panel, the various some of the various variables of the trains that are coming up, what they're thinking, what they're calculating, what they're, something like that. I might do a split screen, for example, that would show a dispatch display, or maybe something like, something simple like, for example, if I was to do a more simpler territory, not to say that it can't do something like this, but something like this, for example, and maybe not as long. It doesn't have to be as long. It really, all it has to be is half of this. So if I was to do half of this single track territory, and then down here I have a data tab that shows you all the trains that are scheduled, when they're going to come in, etc., what they're thinking, what the dispatcher is thinking, what the AI is planning on doing, what the stacks are, what basically all the data points. And then I run this at 40 times and let the thing just run. And I show you on YouTube what some of the things, and I can point out, this is what this is doing, this is what this is doing. See how he's doing this, see how he's clearing this signal, see how he's decided to take an overtake here, see how he's decided to do this, etc., etc., etc. The model is going to continuously evolve. But there's either two things that are going to happen. Either Run8 is going to see this as an asset, and despite any bridges that I've burned, they're either going to try to figure out how to do it themselves, or they're going to look at me as a possibility, and I will, at some point, maybe I sound delusional of this, but I still have hope at Run8 that maybe, just maybe, there's a possibility I can still make some money somehow in the Run8 universe, and I don't have to go full blown. If I can do that, and Run8 sees that potential and is willing to do something with that potential, and Run8 meets my goals, both from a hobby standpoint and financial. And like I said, I'm not looking to quit my job. I'm just looking to make a little bit of extra money. That's all I'm looking for. That is the motivation behind me getting back into programming. That's the motivation for me to try to do the YouTube channel, the monetization, all these things. These are things that I started putting into play in 2018 and started seriously thinking about doing, because I feel I have some talent that I have to start using. Use it or lose it, they say. If that doesn't work out and Run8 decides to do what Run8 wants to do, I've seen other places do it. Freight Yard Manager said they didn't want to do it. Freight Yard Manager didn't want my abilities, so I said the hell with Freight Yard Manager. I found Run8, and Freight Yard Manager's living happily ever after wherever they are, I guess. I don't know. But they were a free thing anyways. It didn't matter. I was willing to do it for free. Things have changed now. Free's great. There's a lot of free stuff out there, but the thing is, there's not as many free programmers out there in the train realm. There's a lot of free programmers for very popular things. There's a lot of open source. We got open rail. Now we do have open rails, but that's one exception to the cause. My plans of RTS go a lot bigger than just a dispatching system. As I've said before, this is just the first phase. I'm not going to, there's a plan A and there's a plan B here. Plan A is to say, okay, wake up, this is how you do an AI dispatcher. Now you want it, you're gonna have to basically cough up something to get it. I'm not saying I'm going to sell it or whatever, or sell rights or whatever, but I want to be involved into it. And judging by the fact that I've burned bridges and probably, despite, honestly, I can't tell you how much, I am been happy with Run8 over the years. Run8 is much more positive than anything I've ever said. Just because it didn't work out for me, it has nothing to do with Run8. It has more to do with me. It has to do with I'm much more demanding. of what I want. So I have bigger goals. I've spent way too much time complacent, enjoying servers, enjoying running, yeah, okay, that's great, I'm enjoying this thing, but you know, my job isn't that hard anymore. That's the other thing. My real life job is not that hard anymore. Yeah, I get stressful days, but I work 35 hours a week, for crying out loud. I make okay money. You know, I need a challenge. I need to challenge myself. I can't just sit on my butt watching YouTube or, you know, the same stuff and hearing about the economy is going to be bad. And yeah, I'm protected and all that, but I need to do something. That's why I have to start doing something, and that's why I'm going to my comfort zone. But the big plan is to have the dispatch module in. I don't think Run8's going to buy it, and I don't think Run8 is going to want anything to do with me, quite frankly. Maybe they can prove me wrong. You know, maybe somebody's going to see it and say, hey, this is what Run8 needs. We need this. Well, this is why I'm gonna prove that I can do it. Not to just everybody else, but myself. I have to prove myself that I can do this. If I can't do this, well then, it's time to put up or shut up, basically. Because if I can't get that done, you know, it's over for me as far as programming. I'm done. Because then I'll just stick to who knows what. But I'll find something else better to do. But believe me, there's got to be something that I can do. But as long as I can get that, then the bigger plan picture goes into trains that can switch themselves. And then the ultimate is going to be, and I did have a smaller project. I was going to go for something that was more 3D and more not as big from scope, like, you know how I'm talking about small railroads and that, but I had a plan for something that was going to be very graphically cool looking, even maybe possibly superior to Run8 as far as graphics, but the scope was not going to be as big. It was going to be quite limited. That's out the window for the time being. I don't have the graphics and artist ability. Maybe at some point my son might be into that, and I might look into that down the road, but for now, that's not what I'm looking for. What my son likes, and this is where my son comes into the play. He's 9 years old and he's looking into programming. What my son likes is he likes tycoon games. Okay. We've always said, well, you know, my problem with tycoon games is there's too much micromanaging involved. I saw it with City Skylines. You know, you got to demolish buildings, and it doesn't cost you anything to demolish. You have to, basically what happens is the tenants abandon the buildings, and you have to demolish it to make it prettier for the neighborhood or something like that. How stupid micromanaging is that? I'm supposed to be, you know, managing how a city is developing, and I have to spend time worried about people complaining that there's this abandoned building that needs to be demolished in their neighborhood. Like, doesn't a developer come along and look at something and say, hey, I can do this? I mean, maybe that's what maybe I don't know enough about city planning, but I just find it's too much micromanaging. And to me, the AI should be able to take care of that. I should have the hired people that are able to take care of those things. And if I want to do it myself, fine, I can do it because I'm the CEO of whatever, or I'm the mayor or the president or whatever. But if I'm running a railroad, for example, I shouldn't be worried about so-and-so train doesn't have a connection or isn't loading enough cars or something along the lines, and this line is not making profit or something, and blah blah blah. There should be people who are qualified at that level to make the changes on the go without having to come to the president. The president dictates, hey, we need a line to be built from here to here. The AI should be able to find and survey possible lines. Then the trains should be able to dispatch themselves, hence the AI dispatcher. The trains should be able to switch themselves, hence the AI switching. The 2D world, and I do say 2D world, unlike most tycoon games, and I know I'm using the tycoon games, most tycoon games I've ever been scale it way ridiculously small to accompany a big, huge map. And you can make these big, huge maps, but they are too compressed. Why not have it? And this is why I keep it at 2D, not 3D. Because if I did it at 3D, we would never see the light of day. Think about Run8. How many people are involved in Run8? And what are we at? We're at 3 regions and maybe 6 or 7 routes, or whatever you want to call it. And there's a lot of the same assets being used. There's, I think, maybe a couple. I mean, you got a main artist, you got a couple other guys. I mean, they're pretty busy for a group of half a dozen people or whatever that's involved in it, into the actual developing of the program and the routes and whatever, I take it. So here I am, one person. What do you think I'm going to do? Well, I'm not going 3D, I'm going 2D. Because I believe in substance over eye candy. And ultimately, like I said, if Run8 doesn't bite and cough up or something, or show me the way, or say this is how you can do it, and I'll prove myself. I have to prove myself. But what's going to happen is this will be the stepping stone. I do the dispatch. I do the proof of concept. I've been saying that I can do it for probably over a year. I said, yeah, I can program an AI dispatcher. I designed it years ago, which I did. I designed the flow charts. I've got the whole thing. You know, it's in my head. It's so easy to me. And yeah, there's going to be challenges, and there's going to be a few things I'm going to have to tweak in practice. Designs are always that way. You do a design and then you put it, and I know I'm getting way on time because it's 10:25, so I'll stop it at 10:30 because I tend to blab. Sorry, guys. But I'm very passionate about this. Like, I'm really energized. I haven't been this energized in a long time about something that I want to do. And I'm really committed to doing it. So now is the time. The time for talk is pretty much over. You know, now is unfortunately you're not going to hear much from me in YouTube in the next little bit. But what I was going to say, what I wanted to stress out, we're not going to have these little compressed 2D worlds. What you're going to see is a world that starts out maybe on a less detailed level. So you'll have cities that have basically straight lines in them that represent the connections. But when you go into a more detailed level, you will start seeing the sidings. You'll start seeing the main lines. You'll start seeing the grade crossings, all the signal infrastructures. You'll start seeing the industries that are part of them that are either wayside or has ended up developing wayside. You'll start seeing the yards. When have you seen a tycoon game that actually has cars that actually sit in a yard instead of just disappearing, or a train that goes into a station and just magically turns itself around, or stuff that just irritates the hell out of me about tycoon games? Because don't get me wrong, I like tycoon games and I like building an empire. My son has always said the reason why he doesn't like Run8 is because it doesn't have that purpose. For him, it doesn't have a purpose. Now I say, well, the purpose is in the operation, and he says, well, no, the purpose is to make money. I'm like, okay, well, I see what you're saying. So you want something that shows the money and the incentive and the tycoon side. So he's really into the tycoon side of things, which is amazing for a 9-year-old, but that's what he's into. So, but I also want a simulator. I also want to eventually get multiplayer aspects. I want to get all kinds of things. I want to be able to have somebody be able, if they want to dispatch any subdivision, they can dispatch. If they want to operate a hump yard, they can operate a hump yard. They can take over for the AI. If they want to be part of whatever operation is available in that entire network. Now, some of this is going to be, I don't know. Personally, I'm not really that interested in necessarily simulating an actual prototype. In fact, I'm thinking about user-generated scenery. I'm thinking about not user-generated, like a background for the or what do you call it? The background map, or representing the contours and the elevation and stuff like that. Because that's the other thing too with these things. TD3, that's another thing. They don't really take into account grade. They just set speeds for each block. I want to put in, for at least the dispatching level and everything beyond, actual grades, so that we know what the grade is going in a certain direction each way, and then the HPT will be used to calculate what the speed is going should be, as long as a train's in that section. It may not be 100% prototypical. It's not going to be 100% physics, but it's going to be the best estimate that I can give it, to represent some kind of, physics is not, it's not going to be perfect physics. It's not supposed to be, but trains aren't going to stop on a dime either. I just want to make sure that the emphasis is on trains are moving, and it's part of a living, breathing railroad. Industries are going to be switched. Demand's going to come in. More cars are going to be required. AI is going to determine the sidings. They're going to determine what tracks are going to be assigned. There's going to be AI yard masters. There's going to be AI everything. And the goal for me, and the challenge will always be, is to improve the AI. And that's what people are doing in the real world, is they are constantly trying to improve the AI. Now, this AI isn't going to take over your job. This AI is going to become your new friends that you wish you had, who like trains, who wants to run with you. And yeah, multiplayer is great, and hopefully at some point I can figure out a way to incorporate that. And there's going to be people who are going to want to model the prototype and whatever, so we'll be modding. There'll be full modding available. But I will have the platform and the various backgrounds and the routes and the ability to generate a huge map that will be able to load in details as it sees fit. It'll keep track of all the trains and all the assets of every single car, engine, train, waybill on the entire network. So your whole railroad empire will be a living, breathing data machine. And the AI will constantly be analyzing the switching moves that are required, the dispatching moves that are required, delays, crew times, whatever else I can plug into that thing to keep making it better and better and better. I'll keep doing it. As you know, this is going to be the passion. And I hope that's it. I hope that's where it's headed. But like I said, I'll start with the dispatcher first. And if I fail, I fail. I'm not worried about failing. Failure for me, I love to say failure is not an option. It's always an option. It just means I learned. It means I tried something and I failed. Whoopee-doo. How many times have I had to fail? I get sick of failing. So hopefully I've learned enough to get away from the whole Run8 thing. And yeah, I'm still hoping that maybe somehow Run8's going to somehow fit in to possibly evolve. They talked about an editor. They talked about all kinds of things over the years, but they're doing a lot of talking too, so we'll see what happens. But they've delivered too in the past, so we'll see. Anyway, sorry that went a little long. That went an hour and a half. Jesus, Murphy, where does time go? But I'm going to give it up for now and get my voice back. But anyways, leave me some comments, suggestions, anything that you guys want, whether it be the YouTube or the Wikia. It's been pretty quiet over there, and I don't want you guys to feel as though I'm trying to abandon you or give up on you. I hate would feel that way, but honestly, at this point, I mean, ultimately I have to look out for number one in this case. It's a matter of pride. It's a matter of what I feel is important. It's a matter of even making some extra money. Quite frankly, I hate to put it down that way, but money is money is going to be essential in this day of age now, because things aren't getting any easier out there. Believe me. You think the economy's great? Think again. I've already talked about that on YouTube or Facebook or wherever else. But anyways, okay, enough rambling. Have a good one, guys. And I don't know when I'm going to be back on. We'll see. I might be a little while because I think I'm going to get busy coming the weekend, at least on Sunday, I hope. So maybe I'll have some example videos if things go well. But when this happens, I don't know. And I'll try to keep you guys posted on the progress. But I plan on starting things probably on Sunday, and I'm looking forward to it at this point. So hopefully I don't procrastinate any further, because I'm ready to go. So at least I'm motivated. Have a good one, guys. We'll talk to you later.